What's good, beautiful people? Welcome to 2.5 Husbands, where we celebrate becoming better husbands.
It's 2.5, even though there are 3 husbands, and that's because at some point, one of us, if not all of us, was not fully the husband that we were supposed to be.
And that's why we actually come here on a weekly basis to discuss some of the issues that we face, some of the issues we are seeing around us, and we hope that the journey that we started with you and for you is going to benefit you,
and yours.
Our gentlemen.
Yeah, what's up, dog?
How are you guys doing?
Sweetie.
Y'all out here
Y'all out here looking fresh and healthy.
Yeah, no.
Sweetie.
Y'all alive?
We here.
Alive and
well.
Alive. That is right. Speaking of being well.
okay.
Ish. Yeah, no. Not that I'm unwell. But I've been thinking and pondering on this chat of healing. Right? And I think as a man, and I speak for myself, I don't think about healing as much as my wife does. Or I'm not conscious of it as much as my wife is.
okay.
But I've realized that I probably need to. And especially when I look at the context of marriage, where I'm like, snap, there's some healing from past traumas that is happening only now. But I'm like, I'm already in marriage. I'm already joined with my wife. We're already built in this life together. But there are things from the past, be it childhood traumas, be it past relationships. There are things in the past that I need to heal from. And I want to hear from you guys. How have you guys found that? Or how has it played out in y'all's lives? And how do you guys navigate that with your partners? Because I think sometimes for me, I feel like, am I living in the past when I'm going through what I actually went through, when I'm experiencing the pain and the traumas of my past? Am I living in the past? Is there something wrong with me? Am I struggling to let what's going on? I want to hear from you guys. I think from a personal point of view, not even speaking about your wives, but you guys as men. And I think it's probably better for us to speak about it as men as well. How have you guys navigated this conversation, bro?
I don't believe in healing.
There we go.
That's right.
Okay.
All right.
I can't say anything after that. He needs to explain that.
Yeah, I think maybe let's open that up. Like, what is this whole thing about healing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm joking that I don't believe in healing. I'm just like, let's open that thing up, because I think it's a big current topic.
Yeah.
And it means 5 million things for many people, And I want us to open it up because I'm like, I've heard, and we always go to the negative, which is fine, because we're always trying to build and do positive things. But the negative is, somebody who then, we spoke about this in previous episodes, but then would be very so self-involved because they're in the process of healing that they neglect their marriage.
Good.
And it's all justified by healing.
Yeah.
And if you speak against that, or you're like, yo, man, I think our marriage is suffering, and but it's like, oh, don't you believe in healing? Like, I'm healing myself, I'm working on myself. There's all these past traumas, etc. So I'm like, sure, man. What does it mean? So as we put this on the table now, what are we meaning by healing? And then I think we could maybe move forward and speak about what that looks like for us. Yeah.
Okay. Maf, on your side?
I think it's almost, I'm tempted to call it one of the necessary skills or muscles in an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
Because we can talk about it as, before, I'm healing from past traumas that happened prior to being married. And I'm like, with the proximity and the intimacy and the closeness that happens in marriage, prepare to heal more.
Sure.
Because the pain that you would have felt from past traumas that maybe you could remove yourself from is a luxury you don't have now in the context of marriage. If y'all fight or whatever, something goes belly up, you're healing and staying.
Yeah.
Learn
Shucks.
fast.
So there's no, I need to remove myself from this relationship to heal. In this case, marriage.
I get it. We said there's no sole location. What you say?
There's no
You can have
solo
girls
healing.
outings, whatever.
Yeah.
but This part you're not. You're not
No,
leaving.
I'm asking because the realities, I've personally heard people speaking about removing themselves from relationships. Unfortunately, even marriages. And we know celebrities were like, listen, actually, I needed to heal. You know, there were issues in my life. I realized that I need to be alone. I need to be by myself. So that's why I decided to leave. So in this case, we're saying we're healing as we are.
What is healing?
Healing. I would define healing as, I think it's acknowledging,
Okay.
accepting, and living past certain traumas. So acknowledging means you acknowledge that this happened and it's an actual thing that has impacted my life, right? You acknowledge that it's a thing, which is where I know I struggle with that, like first step already, because I minimize everything. It's not that deep. It's very deep.
Yeah.
Acknowledging that something is wrong. That's the first thing. Secondly is then accepting that it's had an impact on your life. And accepting, I would say then, that it doesn't have to have a hold on you, which is then linked to the last part, which is, I think, living past it. So accepting it would require you to obviously have acknowledged it. Listen, this is what happened and it's impacted my life negatively to this extent, whatever the case is. And then accepting would then be that thing of, listen, don't be in denial that it has actually impacted your life negatively. And also accept the extent to which it has impacted your life, where you acknowledge that, listen, this has been wrong, and I'm accepting that it has affected how I see women, it has affected how I relate to a woman, it has affected how I build friendships, all of those things. Accept it, and then live past it. Living past it, I'd say, is a bit more mechanical in the sense that you have to be active in then saying, okay, when I go through this experience in my marriage, or when this happens, when my wife does this, this leads to this specific reaction.
Okay.
Living past it would then be, I'd say, it, to some extent, communicating that with your partner and then saying, listen, when this happens, please be mindful that I tend to respond in this way. And it's because I'm responding from a place of brokenness, or whatever the case is. And then you are intentional in working through it. Because you've acknowledged it, you've accepted it, now you're intentional in working through it. And you've put measures in place that benefit the relationship and that also benefit you. And then moving forward, after some time, you'd find that you don't have to be as intentional or as conscious of then living through or working past that specific trauma. So I would say for me, that's what healing is. Off the top of my head, it's acknowledging the trauma, accepting the trauma, and then living past it. Yeah.
I think what I would add is, I'm not even sure if I would add it or taking another angle on the accepting, is acknowledging as well that you suffer the way you suffer. So what I mean is, you may not be in control of whatever the trauma would have been. But one thing you've always got is your reaction and the way that you work through or process that trauma. I think I'm wary of the posture of being at the mercy of the trauma versus the acknowledgement of the trauma and saying, how do I move forward? Because I think in many ways, when one is feeling like a victim, you lose your power and ability to be able to navigate that. So leading to that place where, what was the last one? Living past it. It happened. It's there. How does one then move forward? I think it's by saying, okay, these are the actions and steps I can take in moving forward through that. And many cases, the reason why I was saying, in a marriage, there's a lot of healing is even some of your traumas that you're still figuring out and processing and healing through
Yeah.
are going to bleed over onto your spouse, and they've got to learn to heal through all of those things. So I'm like, it's a muscle you need to have.
It's a bloody marriage.
Yeah, no, legit.
I think, where I'm struggling, gents, is where we find ourselves, again, culturally. And that's why I wanted to kind of define what healing is, you know? So maybe let me go back a little bit. I think, obviously, we live in a time where words have taken, like, different meaning.
Yeah.
You know? So take the word epic, for example, you know?
Yeah.
Which means something big, grand, you know, just humongous, right? Like something that's massive. But we can talk about having an epic cup of coffee. And it's like, okay, but we get what you mean, right?
Yeah.
But I think living in that kind of culture, words have kind of taken a different meaning, have lost their original meaning and how we tend to use them, you know. So, and I think healing and trauma are those words for me in the culture we find ourselves in, right? Where I'm like trauma is such a strong word, man. It's a massive word, right? And I'm like, as people, are we all gonna have traumatic events in our lives? Yeah, sure, you know. But is everything traumatic? No, it's not, right?
Well, didn't you say that's subjective then also?
No, hundreds.
Yeah.
Hundreds, right? But we, because trauma is so strong, we can all agree at an objective level what would qualify as trauma,
Okay.
right? Because it is such a strong
Subjective
word.
experience, but objective definition that we all could agree that is traumatic versus this is not.
Yeah, so you know, we all have, as people at a subjective level, capacities to deal with suffering, right?
Okay.
And that capacity will never be the same, right? And so you'll get the word trauma, for example, and people then throw it into that understanding that because we don't all have the same capacity of handling suffering, anything could be traumatic to all of us.
Sure.
Right?
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm not really convinced by that because trauma is such a strong thing. Like trauma, we could use, like, suffering is a very broad word that includes a wide range of suffering. So again, there we could speak about suffering at a subjective level. But trauma, I'm like, but trauma is multi-layered.
Yeah.
It can't just be because one day my dad left me at school and forgot me. It was traumatic. It was one day, fun. You suffered.
Yeah.
I don't think it was traumatic compared to somebody who got chowed by dogs from, you know, racist apartheid cops. That's trauma. The point that I'm trying to make, I think there is a level, an objective level at which we could use words like trauma.
Sure.
But I think we live in a time and space where those words have lost their meaning. Therefore, then healing would also take a different definition, right?
Okay.
Because again, if my dad leaving me at school, which my dad has a couple of times, right? He left me at school, and I'm like,
Left just like forgot you.
yo, the man forgot me at school. You know, he was supposed to pick me up. He didn't. He left.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna describe that as traumatic. My dad forgot me at school. My dad leaving me, leaving our family, that's traumatic.
Sure.
Because
Okay.
I'm designed to be raised by two parents. I'm designed to be raised by a man as a man, right? That's traumatic.
Okay.
Him forgetting me at school, he just forgot me at school, bro.
Sure.
That's all it is, right?
Sure.
Therefore, when I start speaking about healing, I need to then say, okay, I think you're wasting my life if you're gonna tell me that you need to be healing because your friend didn't give you my gip when you were in grade 5, right?
Yeah.
If you're talking about moving past, I think you need to move past that. Please don't
Yeah.
bring that into our marriage.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
laugh about it, but your dad leaving you, your dad dying, whatever, right? You got raped.
Sure.
That's trauma, right?
Sure.
That requires real healing. Because I think, so if you know, talking about trauma and healing and all this stuff, it's the thing on depression,
Yeah.
I think it, at least in my head, brings up the question around depression.
Yeah.
Where people would take the word depression, for example, which I'm like, if you look at what the original word means, it's to be hard pressed, right? To be pressed down, right? To be oppressed. That's what the Latin is, right?
Yeah.
But now you stuck in traffic, Simba. Oh, that's such a depressing thing. I'm like, but are you undermining and underplaying people's real trauma and real depression who need real healing? And you're gonna compare being stuck in Midrand traffic or Joburg traffic as depression. And I'm like, once we start throwing words like that around and they lose their meaning, and you know,
they become diluted, and
they become diluted, bro.
Sure.
Yeah, and then healing can happen in many ways.
Yeah.
And I'm like, then we're taking away from the real work that's supposed to be done, right? Because then I need healing, bro, from a bunch of things, of things. Because I'm like, we live in a world where we're engaging with suffering all the time.
Yeah.
Different levels, different stages, but we're engaging with suffering all the time. And so if trauma is gonna be placed at the level of just general suffering, then sure, I need healing every day. Yeah.
Sure,
You know what I mean?
sure,
Like, why are we even having this conversation? You're wasting my time. But if we take trauma for what trauma is, right, then I'm like, okay, it changes the conversation. It changes the perspective on what healing is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't look like. And I know I went around. But my thing was, again, I think there needs to be clarity on what we mean, just generally in culture, even in this conversation that we're having now. What are we saying when we speak about trauma? What is it that we're saying when we speak about healing from whatever the specific trauma is, right? But for me, general suffering, which we will experience till we die. Doesn't matter how much money you'll get, doesn't matter how healthy you are, doesn't matter how good your marriage is. We are rubbing against suffering at every point of our lives. Right? Right? Recording this podcast. I mean, if we would switch the cameras now and people would see how our lighting and our things are, right?
Yeah.
It's suffering. Things are hanging from walls so that the thing could look good, right? But we suffered to put this thing together.
Yeah.
Was it traumatic? Hell no. It wasn't traumatic.
Yeah.
Sure.
It wasn't.
If I can ask, Maf, I don't know if you have anything to add, because I want to stake something quickly.
No. All I'm hearing is that there's levels to this thing.
Come on now.
There's healing takes on different forms depending on whatever is inflicting the pain or suffering.
Yes. So I'm not saying there's levels. I'm saying there's trauma.
Yeah.
And people need healing from trauma.
Yes.
Trauma is deep. Trauma is big. It's grand. It's drastic. It's life-changing.
Yeah.
We need healing from that, right? And then we can talk about what that healing looks like.
Sure.
Can we all have different traumatic experiences, encounters? But yes, we can. But I think at an objective level, we can all agree that that's trauma. So Prince gets raped. That's traumatic. You get in an accident, a car accident, where somebody dies. That's traumatic. It's two different experiences, but it's at a level where it's really life-altering, right?
Yeah.
But your father slapping you in the face because you came home late. Yeah, it was probably not the right thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Did it shake your system a little bit? It probably did, right? But I'm like, I wouldn't compare that to. I think that's trauma. I think you suffered when your pop slapped. I mean, I'm not talking about abuse. If your dad abused you,
Not
that's
like
traumatic.
On a continuous basis,
No, right? Your dad snapped one day, Simba. You came home late, clapped you. Gah! Yeah, man, that's wrong, dog. Wasn't supposed to happen, dog. Right? Is your dad generally abusive? Hell no, he's not. He snapped that day. Is that traumatic? I don't think so. Right? You might have been shocked. Fine. And I think you suffered. Right? Yeah. And I think, you might be holding the grudge and maybe you need to talk to your dad about that. But I'm like, compared to the kids whose dads slapped them every night.
They know that
that's trauma.
Yeah.
And I don't want to undermine trauma for your suffering. So I'm not saying I'm not acknowledging your thing. And subjectively, and here's where the thing cracks. Here's where the mirror cracks. Subjectively, we can, because we all of us have an overinflated view of ourselves. So when your dad slaps you, that's the biggest thing that has happened in your life.
That's good.
But I'm saying objectively, I cannot sit here and call that trauma, dog.
Because I think what's interesting then is the trauma part. We all, I think, can objectively agree there's difference. I suppose what I'm wondering now, off the back of that, is the healing part, right? So, as an example, my dad never slapped me or whatever, right? Cool. Is there something that could happen that's not on the trauma level that I still require healing from? You get what I mean? Because there's the healing from trauma.
Sure.
And I'm almost saying there's another variable of healing that may need to take place that's not at a traumatic
But I
level.
think it's to the point you made about their levels to it, where I'm like, at every level, there's a certain level of healing that needs to, like, at every level of trauma or every experience, to make it general, every experience has a subsequent level of healing that is required.
Yeah.
That one slap maybe just needs a year of you recognizing that, listen, okay, that was stupid. I didn't have to do that. It's fine. And then the rest of your life, nothing happens. There's no other slaps that come. So in that case, you might find that it's at this level of healing. If it's once every 3 months, you might find that you're like, okay, maybe in the back of your mind, you're like, is this my life? You know? And then that would have its own requirement in terms of healing. So I think the layers that you mentioned, I would say, is that it should be a tit for tat, right? In a sense that we don't end up undermining the person that actually went through something of a higher magnitude that requires a higher magnitude of healing. You get what I'm saying? And I think it's to the early point that Black made then that speaks of just let's be clear on what we are speaking of when we speak about trauma and when we speak about suffering. You get what I'm saying? So that we don't end up having the one solution, which is extensive healing and extensive counseling, expected to address that one slap when you were in grade 3.
The time you didn't get a sweet.
So that's why I'd still say no.
Yeah.
I'm not using the word healing for somebody who's suffering. I suffer every day being a human.
Sure.
I don't wake up thinking, I need healing from yesterday's experience of whatever was a Tuesday.
Sure.
I don't go into Wednesday thinking I need to heal from Tuesday. I don't. And that's why I'm saying I need to speak about the word healing for people who need healing, man.
Shucks.
I don't want to speak about healing for people who you need to grow up, Simba, and live, dog. You need to live, dog. Will you suffer? You will, dog. Right? If interest rates go up now, you're paying a mortgage. Who's suffer? Now do I need to sit down and Simba needs to heal from his interest? No, bro. And that's what I'm saying. I can't use those, and that's this culture we live in. I can't use those terms, bro. Because then I'm really undermining and downplaying people's real traumatic experiences who need healing. So when I speak about healing has to be applied to. Yes, again, it goes back to the thing of, living in a culture of self-love versus self-sacrifice. In a culture of self-love, we promote this narrative of having to heal. Why? Because we're loving ourselves. And I'm like, some of us just need to grow up. Grow up. That's what life is. Was life rough for my parents? Yes. Did they live in a different time? Yes. Am I suffering the same way? No. Right? But they needed to do growing up for their time. I need to do growing up. What does growing up look like for me now? Right? Again, it's a very silly example. How we put this whole thing together.
Yeah.
People don't know this. And if you were really paying attention, you probably saw. The first episode we dropped is not the footage we used for our trailers for this podcast. Because the first episode, we recorded 4 times.
4 times.
Because technicalities destroyed us. Right? Mics were not working. Do I need healing from that? Hell no. I was just suffering.
Even
part of the process.
I left my place, but we spend petrol, buffet. We're not getting that money
what
back.
What is economy, man?
Electricity, done. Do I need to heal from? No, I don't need. I need to just grow up. We here. This is episode. However, I don't know. We've shot 5-10 episodes by now. We just grew up.
Yeah.
We didn't need to heal from suffering from the first 4 attempts of doing the first episode.
Sure.
Right? Because then there'll be somebody, let's say, again, using the podcast example, who then had the same experience with us. They trying to put on a podcast, they did stuff, they have the crazy rigging we have here, and one of the light falls on the camera guy. The camera guy dies. Jesse, that was traumatic, man.
Yeah.
For them, their first attempt to shooting a podcast, that was traumatic. We're just suffering because suffering is going to be everywhere.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Same thing happens in corporate. Right? Dog, like, if your previous boss, you work for boss A was terrible, bro.
Yeah.
Rough. Your time at work was terrible. Things were hectic. You didn't even know if you're gonna get your salary. When you got to work, they didn't even give you any equipment to work with.
Yeah.
But I could get how that was traumatic, dog. And now you are scared to move on to your new job because you don't know how the things are gonna be. That's scary. For now, yeah, Prince, my boss requires me to be at work at 8. You know how hard it is to... Yeah. Don't tell me about healing. Just get to work at 8.
Yeah. So I think helpful caveats, right? My question is then, because this it brings about. I'd never framed it in that way. I'd never thought about it that way. It brings about now a question of what happens when your definitions of suffering / trauma are different.
To your partner.
To your
that's
partner.
what I wanted us to get into.
Yeah.
Because the reason
Yeah.
why I actually wanted to touch on that was I find that as men, at least the men I've engaged with, we'd often have this very, I don't know if it's pragmatic, but it's very...
Yes, it is.
You get what I'm saying? When it comes to these things. And being married, I think, has taught me a lot about feeling and having emotions and giving your emotions time. Not that it's now all of a sudden everything is an issue now. I'm emotional about everything. But you're like, just don't dismiss how you feel, right? And I know as men, sometimes you can have a very pragmatic, very militant approach to these things. But in that, I've found that there's a good and a healthy balance when I come with this pragmatism and my wife comes with, I don't know what. Emotive. You get what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean that either one of us is lacking in the other. It's just that we lean more towards the one. How do we find in our personal lives a way to communicate that to our partners?
Yeah.
Create an environment that allows for both perspectives to flourish, because you can't have one. Like, that relationship is not going to survive. It's not going to flourish.
Yeah, sure.
If it's either the pragmatism or it's either the emotive.
Yeah.
How do we navigate this with our partners?
Yeah, so...
Because there's a lot that you were saying even now, and I'm like, we're on the same wavelength. Probably all three of us.
No, hundreds.
But I'm like, I can't speak like that to my wife.
Yeah.
Okay, you get what I'm saying?
No, you should.
I would say you should eventually. I think you start by seeing her. That's
No, hundreds, you have to. So here's what I'm saying. All I was trying to correct is that we need to be clear on those definitions and categories.
Sure.
So I use those examples with you guys. I'm like, rape, car accident, right? And death in the car accident. Those are traumatic experiences. They're both different. So I come into marriage, both me and my wife have certain traumatic experiences, you know, but they're different. But can we agree at an objective level that both things were traumatic? Yeah. And we will need healing from those things, right? But all I was saying is we just need to differentiate between what general suffering is and what a traumatic experience is. So if I talk to my wife and vice versa, she talks to me, right? And then I'm like, but girl, like after seeing her, I'm listening to her, which you have to, obviously, like you can't determine whether the thing was general suffering or traumatic if you're not listening and seeing her.
Yeah.
Seeing her, understanding, sure. Right? Part of being married is helping the other person, vice versa, right? Wife helping husband helping wife, right? Because that's why you're with another person, so that they can see things that you're not seeing.
Yep.
After that chat, if I'm like, Marai, girl, in my mind, this is just suffering. This is not as deep as it is. I need to obviously find language that's loving, that's accessible for me to help her to realize that I think this is general suffering. Because then we're gonna spend however long of a period trying to heal from something where I'm like, girl, you needed to put on your big girl panties there. Similar to me.
Yeah.
Like she can think, I don't know, dog, fine, like, that thing was not that hectic. Just put on your underpant and fine, and go to work, Joe. Right? Whatever it is. But I'm not saying that we get there in trying to clarify those things by not listening and just going in and saying, this is general suffering. This is... No, I've listened. Hence, I can then clarify what the thing is, So that's what I'm saying. I wasn't saying that we come in with different understandings of what trauma and suffering is. If that's the case, that's the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
If we both understand and agree that there is objective trauma, right? At an objective level, we could define what trauma is and therefore what healing should be.
Sure.
If that's that, then we're doing the marriage stuff. We're talking, we're listening, we're hugging, and then determining what the way forward is, right? So that's what I was saying.
Maf, I want you to double click on her being seen.
Yeah, so I think, to your point, if I'm to take... let me speak for myself. My wife is way more emotionally mature than I am.
I'll join you on that one for myself.
I am not.
Yep.
Me, I'm not there.
Yeah, no. Like, my wife can, by looking at me, be like, are you okay? And I thought I was fine. But then that question, I'm like, am I? No.
Are you okay?
Actually, no, not really. Am I? No, I think actually this just happened or whatever.
Define okay.
Yeah. So she's definitely way more emotionally mature in terms of sensing and being able to see all of those things. Okay, cool. Me, I'm very logical.
Yeah.
And that's my problem.
Yep.
Is if something's popping off now and I had something that I needed to do in 10 minutes, I will deal with this later.
Yeah.
That's how I am. I'm like...
Positive emotions.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, chief, right now, I need to go into a meeting. Cameras are on. I need to go see some... there's no time for me to sit here and think and process what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Should I be working that way? We can debate that.
Sure. It's also contextual, to be honest.
Exactly.
You play by ear.
Right? But the whole thing there is my wife would be able to see that and be able to say, hey, like, what can we do so that you feel better? etc. Naturally, as a problem solver, my wife can come with an issue that she's having, and already, before I've engaged the emotion, listen, there's variable A, there's variable B.
Controllable versus
V
uncontrollable.
plus B equals C, therefore, this is our... And it's like, yeah, that's not what she was...
Yeah, sure.
That's not what she was communicating.
Sure.
Like, I've caught myself having to be like, hold up.
Yeah.
Let's listen.
What is being
Let us
communicated
listen.
here?
Yeah.
Also, a skill, what is not being communicated here?
Sure, that's good.
So being able to be like, hey, my wife is not necessarily, unless she comes and she says, how do we fix this, is not here for problem solving right now.
That's 90% of the time, bro.
Sure. There we go. And I get it wrong many times.
Yeah, many a times.
She comes and she says, look, this is how I'm feeling, yada, 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 yada. Bam. Okay, cool. Don't rush. Don't rush.
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, babe. Tell me more about that. Like, why did this make you feel this way? Oh, okay. That makes sense because bam, 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 bam. And I'm replaying what she's saying to me.
Yeah, 100.
Before I start trying to say, all right, here's the
do.
solution.
Yeah.
This is what we got to do. And even in that, just because your wife is telling you something that bothered her, that doesn't bother you, doesn't mean that you have now the solution to that thing.
Sure.
And that's where I was talking about the portion where I'm like, we've got to understand what the other person's view as well of suffering, pain, even trauma is. Because in many ways, to your point, some of these things add on to themselves from prior life that haven't been looked at. Even in that moment, you don't have enough data to be able to know, oh, this is linked to that. Ask questions. Lead with questions. Replay what she's saying. And only when given the go-ahead, or if you do feel like you've got enough, then be like, hey, I wanted to check if you are open to me responding to the cases that you're bringing or whatever's bothering you and how we solve for that. And if she says no, it's no, chief. It just, I'd call
Not efficiency would have us do
yeah,
X, Y, and Z.
no. Not if we don't deal with this now, it's gonna. I'd
My
call
guy.
bet. What can I do to be of help in this moment?
Earlier on in my marriage, I created a flow chart of why we shouldn't. What was it? What the detrimental influences of conflict and how it can start with one person not speaking their mind. I created a flow chart on, babe, if you don't do this, if something is wrong and you don't speak, it causes that. If that doesn't happen, it affects that. If that happens, it affects that. But if you were to stop it here,
Come on now.
my guy,
Yes, when a process engineer.
Come on now.
I have not looked at
A
that flow chart
logistician.
since I came to the understanding of making sure that she's seen, making sure that she's heard. Because what I realized was that it is so much easier to communicate to a person that you've won over, a person that is seen, a person that feels heard, a person that knows that they are a priority and that they're not coming to you as a consultant. It is so much easier.
1,000.
But me, I was logic, bro. I was like, this is.
1,000.
But I was like, dude, just hear her.
No, 100.
See her, prioritize how she feels. Because the thing is also, and to the point I made earlier was like, as a man, I found that I approach it in a very pragmatic way. The reality is, even if I pause the pragmatism, it's easy for me to go to it when it's needed. So I shouldn't feel like I'm letting go of something that I won't be able to exercise. I'm like, no, just put a lot more work into hearing her, into seeing her. Because if you do need the logic or the problem solving or the strategic thinking, it's there, chief. You can access it whenever you want. But right now, just listen.
Also, it's not how we talk. Like I'm not.
Hey man, speak for yourself, man.
I'm saying when I go to Prince, it's not particularly that I want to engage my.
Oh, you mean that's how we talk
as an
gents?
strength.
Sure.
It's not a skill I've had to exercise.
Yeah.
Where I must sit there and engage in deep emotional digging of what's happening.
Maybe that's why I don't have a lot of male friends, bro.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry we're not doing that for you, brother. No. But that whole thing is...
No, I understand you as a friend. It's okay. Yeah. I know what makes you tick. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's new because it's... The level's elevated.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a person who should be feeling seen by you. And by the act of you processing things the way that you normally would process them and not seeing how she wants to feel seen in that process. Completely.
Yeah, it's a very slight difference. It's the difference between telling your wife you are a safe space and actually being a safe space.
Sure.
Right? And it's a very small difference.
Sure, very
small difference, right? Because the dudes you're talking about, yourself included. Logic. Okay. He's right now thinking, logically, how am I going to create a safe space? And what is he going to do? He's going to go to his wife and say, babe, you can say whatever you want to say. I am a safe space. You can talk to me whenever you want. I want to see you. I want to hear you. Guess what she's hearing every time you're saying that? I see this guy is selling me a safe space. That's what you're doing. You are selling me a safe space.
Yeah.
If somebody looks very slimy and creepy, and they use words like, we family, it's safe here. You're like, nah, that's dodge, bro.
Yeah.
Safe spaces, you just walk into them because it's a
you feel
safe space.
safe.
And you feel safe, right? It's a feeling. You feel safe. And that's, I think, where a lot of husbands get the thing wrong.
Oh,
right?
no, yeah, spot on.
You're struggling. How do I create a safe space? Okay, first,
Wash the dishes.
Throw a flow chart.
yeah, protocol. First thing to do
Problem
is
solved.
assure her that I am a safe space.
Yeah.
And once you say I am a safe space, what she's hearing is, it's not safe, man. Why do you need to say that if you are, right? But at least, from my wife and other wives that I've spoken to, that's what they want. They want to just walk into the safe space without you having to put a placard and a billboard.
Safe space.
This is a safe space here, right? It's just
Yeah.
oh, dude, this is a safe space. Dope, walk in, right? And so I think that's part of, and that's what I was saying. I can rationalize what is traumatic and what is general suffering with my wife because. And I'm not. It's not me patting myself on the back, right? Because she has walked into a safe space,
Yeah.
right? So I can have that conversation with her. Just be like, hey, girl, I think why? Because she knows that I am not here to attack. I'm not here to.
Yeah.
She knows. Okay, this guy has my best interests at heart, and even as he's talking now.
Sure.
So like what you're saying. So if I'm like, oh, there's need for me to pull out my flow chart, right? She knows that the flow chart comes from a heart that's already invested in her.
Sure.
Right? And I think it's just a tip, bro. Don't tell your wife you're a safe space. Just be the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I think then we can talk about the healing and then don't and the whatever.
Sure. Yo.
Anyway.
No, but yeah, the conversation has evolved. I think for the better. Because it's definitely us not addressing healing, but I think it's us creating an environment of healing.
So here's what I wanted to say, and maybe somebody, maybe I am pushing an agenda. It's fine, but here's what I'm saying: this whole thing of trying to, I'm not saying we shouldn't heal, and I know I started the thing by saying I don't believe in healing, and now you think, Vele, look at what he's saying.
Yeah.
No, we should heal, but we heal from trauma.
Sure.
Again, I make the distinction, not from general suffering. When you met your wife, how old was she? When you married her, rather, how old
When I
was
married her, she was 28.
Yours?
28.
Okay, mine was 24.
No, mine was 29, sorry.
Okay, 29, 24, right? Yes, my wife was turning 24 that day. You thought your wife at 28, 29, 24, the chick was whole enough, right? She was whole enough to be somebody's wife.
Sure.
She was matured enough.
Sure.
She seemed to have all her things in order that required her to be a wife.
Yeah.
Right? 24. Did you not have traumas, general stuff? She did. Right? But at that point, you realized, okay, cool. Like, there's enough things in her, myself included, that we could start this new big chapter of our lives. It's big. It's a big step that we're taking, right?
Yeah.
We didn't sit there and say, I'm gonna check you out for the next 10 years. Why? Because I think there's like all these traumas
Yeah.
that you need to be healing from.
Yeah.
You continued and did life,
Yeah.
right? Why?
Yeah.
You didn't speak about it, but at some level, all of you as adults, both of you, right, recognized,
And you were engaging.
yeah, there's general suffering, things that don't need to hinder me from taking this next step.
Yeah.
Were there big traumas in your life? Yeah, there were big traumas. But even then, you rationalized that I could still take this big step in my life. Right?
Yeah.
So my thing is, why now do we then suddenly say, all right, hold up, we have to pause everything. What are all these traumas in your life that you need healing from? Where I'm like, before we even got married, we didn't take time to heal. We got married. Life continued. We did adulting. We grew up. We took the step. Why? Because without even communicating it, we both understood that there was general suffering and there was traumatic stuff. Even the traumatic stuff, we still felt empowered enough to take this big step in our lives and get married, right? Did my wife still have some traumas that she was dealing with and me, blah, blah, blah? Did those things prevent us from having a kid? No. We didn't pause and go to some retreat so that we can go heal and make a big deal. Are we going to affect our kid in some level, right?
And you would even otherwise.
Yeah.
Hundreds. My point is, not saying we shouldn't be healing. All I'm saying is if we're going to do proper healing, which I would define, because I didn't even define what healing is. I would define it's a process. It's a journey. Yeah. It's what life is, right? Yeah. As I mature spiritually, as I mature mentally, as I mature emotionally, that's healing. I am healing, right? The 25-year-old version of me that did not have the experience of the 35-year-old me, right? So the 35-year-old me has lived. Gain some experience okay, will I use some of that experience moving forward? Yes. Will I use some of that experience to say to my 25-year-old self, Antwana, you didn't have the skills. You didn't have the tools. You didn't have the life experience. I can differentiate between what seemed very big then and actually isn't now. It's okay. We can move on from that. Or, I think there's actually a big, real scar that I can see now with the knowledge I've gained, with the experience I've gained. It's still going to affect us when we're 40, right? Sure. Okay, cool. How do we then deal with that? But now I'm not going to treat that I can see is consistent from the time I was 24, 35, 45, something that I can see this thing will be consistent, right? I would describe that thing as a real trauma. And I would say even part of my definition of what healing is, I'm not stopping to go get some Zen knowledge and life will heal some of these things, bro, as we live. I shouldn't give up. I shouldn't try and sit here and camp and wallow, blah, blah, blah. I shouldn't give up. Moving forward, we'll heal some of these things. Do we need some other intervention as well in the process of us moving in life? Yeah, we do, right? Sure. And that's what I would say adds on to what I would define as healing. Whatever, if it's therapy, 100, let's go. If I need to go for counseling, if I just need prayer, right? If I need to take a vacation with my wife, no solo locations, right? Let's do that, right? But now I'm like, I don't want to undermine real trauma.
That needs real healing.
With just general suffering. I'm like, and because that kind of stuff, bro, you spoke about victimhood earlier on, right? That kind of stuff, when we think everything in our lives is traumatic. Already, I think we live in a culture where our sensitivities have heightened, right? If sensitivities were a valve, I think our valves are constantly open compared to previous generations, right?
Sure.
1,000 years ago, somebody would know, if there's a saber-toothed tiger here, whatever the thing is, the valve will open, will signal to the person, you're going to die, you need to run or fight, right? Done. But for us, the world has moved in so closely that everything is traumatic, right? Yeah. You didn't have to deal with the fact that there's 5,000 other people that you went to high school with who are progressing in life more than you. You didn't have to deal with that 50 years ago because you didn't see them. You didn't know. Now you see it. Your valve is constantly open. Sure. So we need to be saying to ourselves, maybe, yes, my valve is open and that's why I'm more sensitive to all these things. But seeing people who I went to high school with progress in life, that's just general suffering. Sure. It's not a traumatic event. I need to get up and go work if I want to succeed as well. Right? How many other podcasts are amazing in the world? Thousands of them. We can sit here and cry Bafetu and say, it's traumatic that people are not giving us the views we want. Well, guys, we can put out the content, be consistent, work. Are we going to suffer every day we wake up to come shoot? Yes. Yep. Is it traumatic? I can't say that. Yeah. Can't say that, Baba. So all I'm saying is, for me, understanding that difference deepens the healing. Sure. The healing that's required. Yeah. I can't be setting time aside to heal things that you're just supposed to grow from. Sure. And I can't expect that of my wife. Yeah. Things that I'm just supposed to grow up from, I can't expect my wife to use all her skill, her love, her submission, right? Just so that she can now be healing and helping me heal when it's like, you just need to grow up from that, right? There's things I need to heal from, right? So let me end here because cool. Both me and my wife have traumas with our dads. That's a trauma. That affects how we see marriage, that affects how we see each other, that affects how we raise our kids. One thing I need to, and I will keep on healing from, because I'll be a father until my kid dies or I die.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what I mean by healing, that it's a part of life, it's a journey, right? Before my daughter was born, I said, yeah, I'm gonna do everything not to be like my dad who left me. Right? That motivated me to be the kind of dad or father that I wanna be. Right? And then I realized, sure, while my wife was pregnant, I'm like, that can't be my motivation though.
Yeah.
If that's my motivation, let's say me and my father reconcile.
Then?
And then what's my reason to be a dad now? That's a scar. Why? Because I come from that man. It doesn't matter where my dad is and what happened to us. He'll forever be my dad. I don't have another dad. I just have one. That's a scar. So I constantly have to reassess my motivations of how I parent based on my scar.
Yes.
That's there, right? But again, going back to the earlier example, because the same dad who physically went out of my life, when he left me at school, that was in trauma, bro.
Yeah.
I was in trauma, right? And so now I need to differentiate, help my wife as well. How does she help me in the process of healing this father scar, if I should call it that, right? How does she help me heal this thing without putting other things that are necessary? How do I help her heal from her father's scar, right? Without putting all of these other things that are necessary, right? And then differentiate with any other trauma that happens in our lives, even in our marriage, right? And say, girl, I think that's just life. Life will do that, right? Right? Who's the clever guy who said a man is born free but is forever in chains because of taxes? Right? I'm like, we're going to have to pay tax.
Yeah.
Unless you go decide to live under the ocean somewhere and you figured out, how to be those people from Wakanda under the water. But before then, you're paying tax, my friend.
Yeah.
Is that a trauma? It's just suffering in life, and that's where we live.
Shucks.
Right? Anyway.
Yo, I would say
I'm done pushing my agenda.
I would say a parting shot for me, from what we've actually discussed now, going back initially to what I said, acknowledging, in this case, acknowledging if it's a trauma or if it's suffering, general suffering, accepting whatever it is, and then working past it. And I think differentiating between the two is actually very helpful, so that you also don't find yourself assigning time that should be for a trauma for general suffering, and then resultantly wasting time or maybe even destroying your marriage from that. So I think it's important for us to differentiate between the two earlier on. When you acknowledge it for what it is, not for what you want it to be or for what the world is trying to convince you it is. Accept it and then live past it. That's my parting shot.
Yeah. So my parting shot.
Let's start another.
I'm not starting another agenda. I was just probably throwing more stuff in what you're saying. Because marriage is we're building. And so when you're saying don't waste time, that's what I'm hearing. I can't waste time, right? And spend that time with general suffering as opposed to building my marriage. And part of building my marriage is that. How do we deal with real traumas? Because the real traumas will prevent us from building. If I stay obsessing over how my father left, then it sounds like that because I still talk about the man now, even in all the examples, right? But if I obsess over that, I'm neglecting my child. I'm not a full husband for my wife because I'm there. So that we need to heal. That we need to talk about, right? General suffering, I'm like, that's a waste of time, bro. We need to be building.
Because everyone is going through it.
We need to be building, right? So marriage and us having a better marriage than our previous generations, that's the goal. And so that's not going to happen if I'm just faffing over things that I need to grow up from, bro.
That's good.
Sure.
Mafkat.
I think parting shots for me is don't talk about being a safe space, be a safe space. That's a good one.
Don't talk.
That's
Just do it.
That's a strong one. It's really good. But also, see your partner. See your partner. And we only hope and pray that your partner sees you too. But even that, when those expectations aren't met, if we're building, then we need to have grace for each other to figure it out as we're going. It's a process. It's a journey. I'm gonna end it there.
Yeah, no. Guys in the comment section, yeah, it's a journey. Let us know. Let us know what you think about the chat we just had, because yeah, man, this is one of those chats where I'm like, it's not, we don't talk and stop. I think it's like life is happening in the background, and it's going to continue. So yeah, please in the comment section, let us know what you think about this topic of healing. There were some provocative things that we said, not in a bad sense,
why
but
are you
things
looking
that
at me?
no, thought provoking, because I think when you spoke about differentiating between trauma and general suffering, that's something that I don't think we give enough airtime to as individuals, because everyone is talking about depression. We all want to be depressed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's provocative.
Yeah, and people will say,
and I'm not saying that to undermine.
no, and people will say, yeah, at some level we're all depressed, and I'm like, just that alone,
Yeah.
of saying at some level I'm like, but I'm not a scholar.
You're neutralizing it.
But look at the Latin, man.
Yeah.
Being oppressed,
Ach.
being pressed down, like your will to live is stripped away from you.
That's more than not affording the iPhone 65.
Come on,
And
bro. There's
just
people
landing on
who
the
are
50.
who are struggling, buffet too, and then I'm just gonna say, the lines at Spa were so depressing. Suga, man. Hey.
Gosh, man, this economy.
Suga.
But yeah, man. So that's what I'm saying. I think there's a lot that we said that people probably want to double click on. So yeah, please do engage with the conversation in the comment section. And then hopefully maybe before the end of the season, we'll do a live and maybe touch on some of the comments, the questions that have come up in the comment section. But for now, it's love and peace. We've been 2.5. See y'all on the other side.
You probably want to heal from this trauma. Anyway.
We love y'all, man.
Peace.